Bop, bop, bobbing, bop, bop, bobbing, bobbing, bobbing along. Bop, bop, bobbing, bop, bop, bobbing, bobbing along, bobbing along. But I quite like the idea that conflict is a positive, healthy thing and not something that we should walk away from, but something that we should enter into with sort of enthusiasm. But that's such a strange mindset, especially when you have so many people talking about being offended. I mean, I know that they have been for years and years and years, but I was just reading something the other day by somebody talking about being offended and how he tries really, really hard not to say anything that's offensive. And I was just wondering about that. There's a part of me that feels that the way people use free speech to mean that you can say anything you like, even if it's really unkind, like deliberately spiteful, but I can say it because it's free speech. I really disagree with that. I believe that you can have any opinion you like, however weird or however off the wall or however wrong even. But you don't need to necessarily say it in a spiteful way to try and hurt people's feelings.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's. I know that if I wake up real early and it's really hard for me to get out of bed, and if I go on Facebook and I see somebody's post that's even just half dim-witted, I'm ready to tear it apart. So I have to, hold myself back, wake myself up, slap myself out around a little bit, and then realize that it's really not that big a deal for people to not have the complete truth. They're working on it, and they're bold enough to put it out there that say something so stupid or whatever it is they're saying. It's awesome. The whole internet, or the social media thing, even though not many of us are hip to much at all, we're like getting exposed to all these things and like expanding our mind, exercising our understanding of something larger, and none of us are going to get it right.
That's right.
So to be able to use that tool to like you said, I mean, it's not bad to have conflict, but to say it spitefully, to say it like the other person that other person owes you to be better. No, that they don't owe us anything. They are who they are.
Yeah.
Of course, you go deeper into that, but yeah, that whole spitefulness is really strange, and I feel it. It's like when you drop a sock. And it's like you just got done picking up all the socks, and then you drop one, and you're like, you want to kick yourself in the ass or yell at the sock.
Yeah.
Right. So the older you get, and the less you want to bend over, the more you hate that sock for a minute, and then you'll catch yourself one day, and you go, God, it's just a sock. You take a big deep breath, and you bend down and pick it up.
Yes. It's interesting that about getting old is that things aren't so important anymore as you get older. Things that seemed so important 10 years ago just aren't. But I do think that you can control the aggro, right? Oh, I didn't ever used to think that it was worth bothering. I used to sort of think that, like, you got a right to express yourself. You can express yourself. But now, seeing it differently and seeing it like this, that there's a difference between freedom of speech and good manners, now I'm at this thing of like, how far do you go to not offend somebody? Because if you're going to try and not offend anybody ever, you may as well just never ever speak again.
Yeah.
My opinion is going to offend some people just because I have my opinion. It's so odd, this whole communicating with other people. There's some sort of balance in there between being non-conflictual, but then just understanding that, I don't know, that what you're going to say, that there are some people that are going to be offended or upset or misunderstand you, or, we're just humans. We haven't got it all right.
Yeah. Right. And it may not even be like they're that type of person. You might be just catching them at the wrong time of day when they just woke up, they're in pain, they just stubbed their toe, whatever it is. you may just be catching them wrong,
Yes.
the wrong time, wrong circumstance to drop a sock in front of them,
Yes,
And
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's really strange about this, like how you're saying the person that's actually being offended, okay, the one that it's so, and especially, I mean, if it's something, they're not going to be offended unless it's touching a nerve, right? It's
Mm.
nobody's offended about something that isn't have some relevance, right? So it may not be completely right, and that's often true. But there's this secret, like, experiment that it was done by in the ancient times, right? It's done many, many times, and we've done it as cavemen. And it's this is that you wonder in your head, what's the difference between loving something and hating something? And we often do one or the other, you know, and not both together, but like some things we love and hate, at different times. Like that sock,
Yes.
I certainly like it when it's cold outside and I need to put it on, a nice fresh one.
Yep.
But an old dirty sock, I got different feelings about it. It's the
Yeah.
same sock though.
Indeed.
But beyond that analogy is that when you show something love, it grows, it thrives, it's
Mm.
real vibrant. It's not, you're helping it grow. When you hate something, it also thrives. The more you hate it, the more it thrives. It has to fight
Wow.
against you to exist, and it has its own will to live. So the the harshest thing or the most brutal thing you can do to something in life is to neglect it, to look away, to not acknowledge its existence. And when you do that third thing to yourself, that's the worst thing you can do, is not look at why you're being offended. So if you're the one being offended, you're now platforming yourself to learn something about you. And if you don't take that opportunity, you begin to neglect and fall into this hole of despair that you eventually are lost in. There's no light to see where to go. You can't even
Mm.
see what you lost. And I speak to that in terms of the way that you've called the situation real before, because it
Mhm.
can be very literal for that person.
Yes.
And that is just as real as, you know, my fantasy world of everything's a-okay and great. I love all dirty socks. It's like we're living in the same world. I just choose to be, fancy about it. And the weird thing is we need people to hate things.
Yeah.
We need people to be offended. There are a lot of things that are offensive that are said or added on to things that should be just simply put. And so, but having that, I think, is a healthier environment and more hopeful than one of neglect. If we were all walking away from our conflicts and just giving up on them because they're hard or we don't want to face them, then that's where I think we lose ourselves in this darkness where we can't see the place out. And it becomes more real every day. And we have a new starting point of this reality every time we begin again.
Mm.
So, yeah, I think it's positive to love things, and it's okay to hate them. You don't have to feel like a bad person to hate that you dropped that sock. That happened recently is that I was yelling at the dogs. They were chasing the squirrels, and I was yelling at them, and I offended my own body. My own body was like, "Jesus, man, like how?" Right? Because I'm angry, and didn't get anything through. The dogs are sitting over there doing their funnest thing they've ever done in their lives. They didn't hear a word I said. So in such conflict with myself all of a sudden because I'm hurting myself for no good reason. And there are ways to love this situation to make it better. And I didn't have to feel in that moment, I didn't have to feel mad at myself for doing the wrong thing, yelling and hurting myself. I was like, well, at least I care. At least I give a shit enough to, like, I'm literally angry and beating myself up about something that, there needs to be a solution to this before someone gets hurt.
Mhm.
So I was like, wow, like I care enough to hurt myself. I mean, that's stupid. You know what I mean? But let's get smarter here. Let's what can we do out of love to fix this the way I would rather see the situation? Because those
Mm.
squirrels will rip the faces right off my dogs. If they don't kill them every time, eventually one of those squirrels is gonna sink a tooth, and that's whoa,
Yep.
it's brutal. Yeah.
Yep.
So anyways, I like that they're being dogs, and I also want to protect them. And there's conflict, you know,
Yes.
and I have to find that happy medium, and I don't want them to neglect it and look away. It's like my favorite friend I've ever had. He's so cool.
The interesting thing is that conflict is so good, and yet there's so much in pop psychology and in our language about staying away from all things that are negative. Don't say negative things. Don't listen to negative people. Don't be negative. Negativity is so damaging, and yet, is it really? I mean, if conflict is so good and so healthy, and we grow so much through conflict, and it's not wrong to hate things, then where does being negative fit into that? Because obviously, you're not going to have conflict over two positive things. There
Well,
has,
interestingly enough,
yes,
there's that draw for connection there in the space of duality, and to resolute that conflict, to bring the positive and negative together and connect the energies so things can flow, like taking the leaf out of the river stream, like little clogs up, you know, and you scrape the leaves out and get the river flowing, and it becomes healthy energy, and things don't get stagnant in there and cause you to have repetitive bad habits that lead to, you know, greater wrongs and greater disharmony. So yeah, that's what you're saying about positive conflict. You have to resolute conflict. Of course, it's going to be conflict. The streams get clogged up, sticks and leaves. You know, little things that happen in the day, like you dropped a sock, and you were like kind of pissed off at that sock for a minute, and that, you know, later in the day that came back, and you go, oh shoot, huh, you know.
yes.
Yeah, you
I
feel what you do to your body when you express yourself. You know, it's like you're this
yes.
canvas that actually gets written upon.
So maybe that's the secret, what you've just said there. You've just said how you express it. Maybe that's the thing, is that how we deal with conflict can be something that builds us up and makes us stronger, or it can be a way to separate people and bring destruction and misery between people. So it's not actually conflict in and of itself that's positive or negative. It's how you deal with the conflict. So not allowing the conflict to impact negatively on your body, on your mind.
For sure, Pop Dub. I mean, that's exact. Like, I've had some rough times in my life where the conflicts I was having, which weren't any more extensive than the ones I have now, really. Maybe some bigger growing pains, but the way that I reacted to them, I was drinking and not managing my pain that I had. I had a broken back, and it was just, I wasn't doing the things to get the breath in me. You know, I was hurt. Like, it's kind of like being punched in the stomach and you can't take a full breath. So you literally have to go out of your way to go practice getting the breath inside of you, or you're just losing days of fresh, that stream flowing, and you get that pain just sinks into you, and you become an old dirty glove. You know, you're not fresh, and your mind becomes that. You know, and you crimp and you get stiff. You know, and it's the strangest thing, because getting old is actually a concept. Not that things don't age. They certainly age, but death is just a concept, and it's one we almost can't help but agree on, you know? And it would be wrong for one person to take, well, I mean, who's to say is right and from wrong, but someone takes the knowledge of living 1,000 years and makes everyone else live with the knowledge of living for 10, you know. So in that respect, there's obviously everything you could possibly imagine probably is already a thing. So for every wrong, there's probably 2 rights, or maybe the vice versa. But the more that we can work on resolving conflict, I don't know what it is. Like, it's like that little policy that we have in America for buying a gun. If you go to buy a gun, you have to wait a week. And so, like, if you were to have this conflict in your life and you were going to use that gun, let's give you about a week to think about that, because resolving conflict with the gun is a serious matter.
Yep.
But we live in a free country, so in a week, come on by, get your gun, just go do
Yeah.
what you're gonna do, you know. And a lot of people hate that we live in this wild world, but that's what I think freedom is. It's wild, it's free. That's the whole point of it. And as humanity, like, that's our job, is to grow up and start dealing with conflict in a wiser, healthier way, so that we can have freedom. But the more we yell at our animals or at each other, or get so pissed at socks because we happen to drop it again, we just fucking look at it and laugh. It's a cosmic joke. I like that podcast you were on about the cosmic joke. It was great. It's just so much more lighthearted, and when you're in that state, then you're not conflicted in such a way that you what was that word we were using earlier, triggered,
Right.
and you start bringing out all this unresolved energy that's not in any type of harmonic nature. It's like a singer learning to sing. You don't go up on the opera stage and sing with no training. People would boo you off the stage. They'd hurt you. Would be a historic event. How horrible, you know. But you gain the respect and the past people. Now, if you go to, you learn how to sing, you're amazing. That you get an invite in the mail. Please come sing on our stage. So the whole world has changed. The whole world treats you different by resolving your conflict and going to do something about it. And people that don't solve their conflicts and they wonder why the world treats them the way they do, it does. There's a lot of that in the world. There's a lot of all these ways to basically not understand that conflict is your friend. I could go on about it all day long. I have a neighbor that just walked by, and she is her landlord is very. He wants this, he wants that, he wants her to pay a lot, and all this stuff, and she just avoids the whole thing because she hates conflict.
Right.
And I was like, wow, I like conflict. I was like, I'll talk to him. We'll work something out for you.
Yeah.
And she was almost afraid for me to go do that because it's conflict. Mm-hmm. It would create conflict in her. And I know the guy. I know it would work out great for actually everybody involved. So, sitting down with someone and caring for them is like the opposite of neglect. Even if you're going to have conflict with this person, the most important thing you can do is sit down with them. When you sit down, things are resolved. We can feel differently about each other. We walk differently, because we feel better. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's incredible. It's taken me weeks to heal from yelling at the dogs. I'm telling you, it was something else. I was so mad because the conflict was like, I don't want to have to take them to the vet and pay a lot of money to get them stitched up. Simple, something. So I'd do that at home, but the other owner for sure wouldn't let me do the surgery here, stitch my boy up. But that's way aside from the point. Is like, I was conflicted. That's gonna really put a dent in my day. You know what I mean? So I'm yelling at them. No, don't take what's mine. And it's not mine. It's just I wake up lucky enough to have it. So let's try and not yell at the dogs. I was like, that's like I said, my whole development through this conflict and learning how to deal with it differently is that I sort of root for them, but. The truth is I bought a wrist rocket that shoots arrows, and it's my turn. I'm gonna tell the squirrels they gotta move, and I'll show them how serious I am, and they will move. they will move off the property. And, you know, it's the best I can do, you know, to get them at least away from the house so we can at least walk outside and not have freak out events, you know, because the dogs turn wild.
Yeah.
I can't help my boy from running through the forest and finding them eventually. It's a daily.
Yeah.
And that now I'm involved now in the whole pyramid of life, right? Because I'm now taking the squirrel's life. So I'm taking some responsibility, you know, and to resolve the issue for the dogs. You know, it's something that I had to push to the situation. It wasn't like this, like, oh, I'll just look at it and discover there's conflict and everything's okay. No, once I discovered, well, this conflict really needs to be resolved, it's like I have to do something. If I want anything to happen, I got to do it. I got to man up, shoot some squirrels, and be okay with it. I don't like seeing the squirrels lose, but it'd be better for everybody if they just moved along. So, you know, and that really sucks. But, yeah, I'm sure that the animal in both of the dog and the squirrel don't mind the fight. It's crazy. Those squirrels are feisty as heck.
Yeah, they are.
The dogs scare them. Oh my gosh, their faces. You know, you could tell how afraid that squirrel is. It's like the dog. I mean, could you imagine something like 10 times your size chasing after you with a giant teeth the size of your arms?
Yeah. No, it's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, how is that? I was always like, I feel lucky that I'm a human being, and there are very few animals that are around me that, you know, will do that. But we've driven away the bears and the big cat. We have some big cats here. There are nights in the forest. Yeah. Because if you take the wrong step, you get close to someone's cubs. We got black bears too. So the world is definitely still wild out there, which I'm so glad for. And I think people should be more ready to try and fix that and keep wild in our world rather than pushing it away and neglecting it and not looking at it and not dealing with it because it's too much of a conflict for you to deal with, you know, and being sold the next product, watch the next TV show, and put in your dollar to the destruction of nature.
Yes. You know, it seems when you were talking about your neighbor being too afraid to speak to her landlord, I was thinking it is about fear. That is the problem. Why people don't get involved in conflict is because basically they've got some fear about it, some fear about something. And I battled to try and discover what it would be that she would be afraid of speaking to her landlord about. And then I thought, maybe there isn't a fear of something. Maybe it's just that people are sort of just afraid. And when you're not afraid, you can deal. Because you said, oh no, I like conflict, I'll go talk to him. Like, you're not afraid. She is afraid. So the conflict is the same.
Well, interesting to say that. So, like, the reason why I like conflict is because I get mad at stocks and I yell at dogs. So I carry that anger in my life until I can resolve it and replace it with something that, you know, brings it a higher tune, right?
Yeah.
So, so for her, she fears things, and she does. So she has things that she fears in life right now. She's going through a lot, and so everything to her is a fear. She doesn't want to do the conflict. She's afraid of doing that. It's too much. And whereas, like I said, anger, especially so fearing something and running from it, you're neglecting that thing. And like I said, that's the worst thing you can do to something.
Yes.
It not only will die, but in the process of dying, becomes something horrible. You know what I'm saying about that? Yeah.
Yes.
The thing that you hate, you might hate it so much that you kill it and it's gone. But if you neglect something, it's becomes something unrecognizable if you ever happen to run into it again.
Mhm.
Anyways, I'm kind of getting off into like a Stephen King feel here with the rant, but
I think it's fascinating that you're just describing this neglect as the greatest evil. It's making so much sense to me. To fail to address the issues, to allow your fear to shut you down, to stop you, to neglect your duties or neglect facing up to these issues because of your fear. It is what you're so right. And I look at myself and I see how, with trying to deal with my depression over the years, the advice that I was given was to do positive things. Like, distract yourself from your situation and go for a walk. Or have a bubble bath and make yourself feel better. These things that were given to me were how to generate positive emotion in me. And hopefully if we generated all this positive emotion, the depression would just go away. But in fact, it never happened like that. The more I tried to generate the positive emotion, the softer I got and the more I sunk into the misery. And when I turned around and I actually faced the depression and said, this is damaging me, I need to deal with this negative thing that's happening, and to confront it and to actually fight it, to not try and replace it with positive, but actually try to dismiss the negative, actively stop myself from being negative. And I think that, because I was neglecting to face the depression. There was a strategy, I'd been given a strategy, and I was using the strategy, but it was a failed strategy. It's reminding me a little bit of what you were speaking about the other day when you were talking to me about psychedelics, and you were explaining how taking the psychedelic is not the helpful thing. It's the coming back. What were you saying, Rush? How did you explain that?
Or maybe I might have referenced not coming back, not becoming the same person you were.
Yes.
And whatever that you did happen to have an experience about while crossing the thresholds of existence, right? If you see those things and you deal with that conflict and you deal with those realities in a positive way, you could obviously have a bad trip and you come back different as well. But I'm talking about having a good response, and then maybe some sort of if it's a self-realization type of thing, you make new commitments and new goals when you come back, and you become a new person. And I think that is what needs to be taught, is a psychedelic experience. This is the thing, is like, you don't want to do the job for people if you do all the hard work and they get all this benefit knowing something and they never had to actually think about anything. Are they going to be respectful? Are they going to be responsible? Are they going to neglect the things that it takes to keep those things going in their life? It's like, we certainly don't want to get to the place where we all hate each other. That would be really shitty. So much, can't even love each other. It's a ridiculous place to be. I think even worse than maybe some pictures of neglect. It's so weird to not just solve conflict and move on, and because there's more conflict headed your way. Like, you don't dwell on things, good or bad. Even good stuff. Like, let it go, move on, grow some more. So conflict is, can end up arising out of something that never looked like conflict. It was the best thing of your life, but you couldn't let it go, and you didn't pay attention. I enjoy my life, so I'm just busy enjoying my life, and I forget that maybe other people aren't, or duties of being part of a community, or things you just you're not thinking about what you've already made contract with in the world, and someone's sitting there waiting on you. Rush is about to show up. Oh, well, he never showed it up. He never made it. You know, people
Mm.
forget what what was that word? They've made allegiance with, you know? They get all excited and life's so cool and they take me down every day, you know, and pretty soon you got 20 payments to make using any of the apps because you're off doing some other thing. I can
Yes.
understand getting that excited. I get excited and you forget. You forget about your friends, you know. You know, you can lose so much by being happy and overly, you know. I think that's neglect too. It's
Mm-hmm.
like important to find conflict and to find resolution broadly, you know, because we talked about that. Is it's not the conflict, it's the way we deal with the conflict and resolve things. One of my things, I talk so much that I will figure out later all the things I missed out on because I didn't allow there to be enough space for the other person to talk, you know, sometimes. And
Oh,
I'm
right.
often when I show up, I'm ready to learn. Like I'm like all excited. Yeah, I want to. I'm here, and then I get going on things I think I know, right, and telling stories. So I always look back on conversations and I have a problem with how much I talk and just like I'm almost like in the state of thought. And most people won't actually pay any attention to that because they want to hear this really confined, like a stand up comic. They like refine their jokes until they're perfect and like precise. And so people don't have time for stuff that's not precise, you know, and like put together and nice, you know. And so I'm kind of actually used to most people not even, it's rare that someone will listen to me rant on and on. So, anyways.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't make enough of your videos. I wish that you could rant on and on every day and I could record them. I think
Oh,
that it's
man.
brilliant. I love listening to you. I was thinking the other day about, when was it? Maybe after we talked. I was thinking about how I remember as a little girl sitting around where adults were having conversations and we weren't allowed to talk. I don't know if you were born back in those days when kids weren't allowed to talk. And so all we were allowed to do was sit quietly and listen. And I remember those days and I remember the adults just throwing things back and forth between them. This happened, that happened. Just that thought to me of throwing my mind back to a time when I was surrounded by conversation. Because living this sort of very withdrawn, hermity sort of life that I live, I don't mix with people every day. The mixing that I do with people is like with you, like a one-on-one conversation like this. And so sitting in a group of people and hearing people's stories and, people riffing back and forth and the whole thing happening, I think it's something that people are craving in this world where we're all so disconnected. So people want to hear people just talking about stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there are polished things. I know. I'm not saying that people don't like that. There is a big market for movies and stand-up comedy routines and go out to a show and be entertained. There is, there is a demand for that. But there's also
Yeah.
this need for people to just hear other people's voices.
Interesting. I used to go out to the bars, or there was this restaurant one time. Oh, and that place was there. So they're both restaurant bars that I would go to, and I'd play my guitar. They'd have a little open mic, and real low key in the slow part of town.
Mm.
And yeah, there's like most people that went, they would do covers and whatnot, and I'd sit down and I would just look at the audience and start singing about whatever it was is on my mind right then,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of have a different set. And it was cool because it always was like signified where everybody was sort of could talks amongst themselves, like carry on with dinner and whatever they were doing. It's awareness of me. Yeah, I was just thinking you're right. Like there's a need for like we're talking about authenticity or people just talking, being themselves.
Yeah.
And not trying to sell something.
Exactly.
I've heard on actually some podcasts recently. Some experts or some people that study the field say, some analysis say that that's kind of like the new hip thing, is to actually be somebody, and you will, and like to be like if you're somebody, there's going to be all these podcasts that call you and want you to be on their podcasts.
Right.
They are all going to be looking for role models that are real people, not influencers.
Yes.
Not someone that drives makes a good video, no, not someone you would find on the internet.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I do think that we could have a potential of, moving that direction would be a good thing. Like I said, people need to know how to be a human being again and not take life so seriously, that whole cosmic joke thing, and resolve conflict in a positive way. And and there's not the assumption that once you do, you're this like someone that's better than somebody, and or even create a brand that says so, like how you were telling me about how you felt about saying, "Oh, I'm the best, most Googled man on earth," the way Tate was doing it. I thought that was pretty spot on, because it really is wrong to, if you're going to be a leader, to lead someone down the wrong path.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes, exactly. It is interesting. It is so interesting what people want compared to what people need.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so Tate is what they've got. The people who need him in their lives, right. That's their options. But there are others, there is a higher, I don't know how to say it. There's not that many options. People have to choose from what's there. It's one of my big complaints about the voting system, is that there are a whole lot of people that I would really like to vote for that just aren't on the ballot. They're just not a choice. Because the choice has already been made for you by some other guys who are like, oh, you could vote for one of these people. Well, I don't want those people. I want this guy. Yeah. This is the guy that'll do the good job. And I'm finding that on social media too, is that I'm looking for people, and there is a selection. There are a selection of people out there, Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, and I don't know, all the boys, they're all out there. But they're not necessarily, they're not necessarily the best. They're just what is available.
Well, there's two things. There's a written algorithm, and then there's an organic algorithm, basically, that's created by likes and comments and intention. So not only our algorithms are filled with popular things, things of our liking, and then things that they want to promote. So when you start seeing things as much as Joe Rogan, these are things they want to promote.
Yes.
So really, if you don't look any deeper, you're really being fed something from an algorithm that you share with many other people. The only way to break free of that and become a digital nomad and someone that has control over their own digital adventure or discoveries is someone that takes the time to question and use the tools provided correctly or more abundantly. Don't just assume, or what should I say, because it is a form of neglect not to look further into something.
Right.
And
interesting.
So use Google. Go, these tools, if used properly, like ChatGPT, can be quite wonderful. But if you're not creative, you're not going to use your brain, it's not going to spit anything out at you worth anything. But anyway,
exactly.
But that's kind of what were you asking me?
What were we talking about? Algorithm. And I was saying that what's out there on offer is not always what people need to help them. Like conversations like we're trying to have we're trying to provide the information that people really need, not the information that makes us look good.
Right. But I mean, I'm just saying that them needing something isn't enough. They have to want it. So what if they don't want something? It's gonna they are served is chosen by someone else. You have to literally say no to what is being offered to you.
Yes.
And go on your own search.
Yes. Yes.
Like, yeah.
Exactly.
And if you don't do that, that's your responsibility. And like, I know it would be nice to have more people in the world like that, but that whole system of propaganda and the world that they're served is supposed to, in theory, in design, keep them from destroying themselves, for one, but that never seems to be the case because it's a form of neglect.
Right.
You can't enslave someone and then beat them into submission and then everything's good. No. Once they submit, they're neglecting their own free will, their own aspiration to be free, right? The will to live. So, if they're okay with being a slave, they're dying of neglect. And that's a terrible situation, especially for everybody. They create so many complex problems.
This thing that you're saying about neglect seems to me to be very, very important. It seems to me to be, I was once having this conversation with my mom. Well, I was visiting her, and she would say, she would throw things out to start conversations like, have you heard about such and such? Or did you see the news yesterday? And every time she did a suggestion, I would say, let's Google it. And she got so mad with me. And she said, I don't care about what the stupid computer says. I want to have a conversation. And that was really interesting to me because it was from a person who wasn't computer literate. A person not computer literate didn't want to turn to the computer for information. She wanted to turn to other people for information. I just found that was quite a few years ago. It was probably 10 years ago. But it was really interesting to me that there are people who just don't want to search the computer for more information. They sort of want to talk about what they already know, not get more.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think most people in their old age tell the same stories over and over again, and they're really not listening to anybody. So, it's just, yeah. What you're saying is, yeah, it's funny.
It's just another sort of neglect the information that's out there on the computer. Yeah.
Yeah, people are terrified of the computer, right? I don't know, but I kind of agree with part of that. Like, maybe that there's information in a conversation that you couldn't really Google, or anything.
Yeah.
It's just this human like connection, this human intelligence of just talking to someone, and that's what people really actually do crave. But we use like tools like Google and things like that. And like, I didn't mean to like promote Google or anything, but like, you just like, if we were talking about ants, we would run outside and try and find some ants.
True.
You know what I mean? And go, let's go check them out. Or if we were talking about birds, let's go bird watching. True. In that respect, just like really putting in the effort to go see that thing or experience it in some way.
Does he need you?
I could just let him out and run around, but he's really got a lot of energy, so he sometimes gets the wild hair and decides he wants to run free for 3/4 of a mile, and then he doesn't know where the heck he's at.
Yeah.
He doesn't care. He'll just start checking stuff out later. I'm like, what the heck?
Oh man.
Yeah, so he'll have to wait a minute and go. We've been going out late at night and to find the frogs because the frogs get real loud, and then so we're both like woken up. Let's go. So we go Damn frogs.
Midnight frog hunting. Okay, that's a new
Yeah.
one on me. Does he
Yeah.
catch frogs? Does he catch them?
No, we're just both
Okay.
mind blown about how loud they are. We go up to the
Yeah.
sides of the creek and we go find where they're at. And he looks at me like, what could possibly be making that sound? And I pretty much look at him and say the same thing. I don't know. It sounds like a monster, but it almost like hurts your brain after a few
Yes.
hours of that.
Yeah.
So we were
Yeah.
like, thinking about maybe rolling some rocks down the hill or something, but
Oh,
we were
really?
nice and just went home. Went for a jog and got more tired, and then we fell asleep.
Sleep. Right. Oh, well.
But see, there was conflict, dealing with conflict in a positive way.
Yes.
And we got something good out of it. Night
Yes.
run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they say that frogs are the most ecologically sensitive creatures. And they're one of the main signs, I believe, of a healthy ecosystem. And one of the first things to go out of an ecosystem when there starts to be damage or pollution or something.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you remember you're laughing about, can't think of his name, a guy that says gay frogs.
Jones. Alex Jones.
Huh?
Alex Jones. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's some relevancy to the gay frogs.
There is.
Yeah,
there sure
so
is.
It's really wacky. And what's even scarier is like a creature like a frog or a beaver
Mm-hmm.
or a condor. These things can be keystones of environments, like the bat. And so if you mess with them, the whole environment can change. Different trees, different bugs, and then different animals. It can change everything.
Yeah.
Over the years, not like overnight, but it's amazing to me. I think the insects and the trees are just the most amazing creatures, and the funguses. It's just wild out here.
I know. Yeah. I know. It's incredible. My best thing about the forest is coming in those little places where there's little streams. This tiny little spring, and there's the moss, and there's the little ferny thing, and it's just like tucked away in the middle of nowhere, this tiny little fairy garden.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, well. Oh, man, Rush. Well, that was an amazing conversation. I think that was really good. I'm so glad that you introduced that concept of neglect. That is big. It's something that like I listen to you saying it, and I have this, like when you say hating things isn't bad, I have this thing that, like, I've been taught over years that hating things is bad. And so now, like, I've got all this received knowledge of what comes from society. Like, don't hate things, be a nice person, be gentle and kind. And I listen to you, and I listen to the way you explain it, and your way seems to be so much more sensible to me. I mean, why would we have the emotion of hate? Why would it be in us if it wasn't useful? Everything that we have, if we use it in the right way, it's productive.
Super.
So it's really interesting having this new thing that you're saying about neglect. Neglect being far more damaging than hate. It's a really, good perspective.
Yeah, that's probably one of the things I've heard. And, these are all things that I've learned from my teachers. So, and you were mentioning something about not, a couple of times now, not being too internet savvy and not knowing where to find cool stuff, or thinking that there isn't cool stuff out there. The only people out there. But so I don't know. I think it's partial algorithm at this point, because I've been using the internet tools for a long time in a very productive way. So I think those companies, it's in their benefit to assist people that are doing well. So I definitely have a healthy algorithm, one that listens to me, one that gives a shit about what I'm searching for, and it's less selling to me and more informative. and leading me where kind of where I am on my journey, because there's millions and millions of people that have come before me and gone on in the journey. So it's almost like how a path is made. People that come before you, they lay a path.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're walking the path, if you're experiencing the path, you're gonna experience it even more, and the path is going to become alive. Like you said, like you come to this place in the forest where there's a spring and there's moss and ferns and butterflies and dragonflies and all this,
Yeah.
pollen in the air. It's just like, so yeah, it's really cool to be able to be, I don't know. So I find a lot of cool stuff, what I'm saying, and I would love to share with you a couple really great channels that I've come across, and they're worth listening to for sure.
Yeah? Oh, I'd be very interested.
Yeah, there's some great people out there that give a shit and put a lot of effort and into creating a very positive message that is actually relevant. You know what I mean? They're tapping into relevance. They're also looking in the world at what's going on. So, just really good. What do you call them? They're like, yeah. So I'd love to share some with you.
I would love to hear about that. Yeah, that would be brilliant. That would be so. I mean, I don't know how to find it. Like you say, I read things that the internet serves up to me, Right. And like I say, a lot of it is Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson. That's what YouTube's decided that I want to listen to. So that's what comes in my feed. So I do search around, but it takes a long time.
Well, like I said, there are certain keys, like almost like cheat codes, if you knew them offhand, and you could just go search for something, and all of a sudden it would open up and unlock certain potential in the algorithm for you. Yes. But like right now, because you're probably in the general audience, they send you what they want to send you. They want to keep you on a certain path.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's, and I think, well, if there was any time for them to disconnect us, it would be now, because that's like the sort of whole secret behind advertising, because it's a problem reaction solution, right? So they have to know how you're going to react, and then they bet on you.
Yes. Well, I've heard that they can predict your reaction before you've even started taking action.
Absolutely. This is where the rush hack comes into play. Is if you decide as a human being that you're going to interact and react to everything in the world with love, and you're going to resolve conflict in the most peaceful, loving way that you can, all the things in the world will be forced to become a soft little teddy bear that it'll become more and more lovable. And when I was really good at it, those times were when I don't I don't try and solve the problem. I just reveal what you're not seeing, right?
Yes.
And then that's it. Now you go and you try and figure it out. I'm not going to solve your situation for you or try and make you understand it, because the more I try and make you understand it, it's just not the way you understand things. Mm-hmm. You have to write your own book, right? I guess.
Mm-hmm. And interesting.
Be proud of yourself. Yeah. And how funny how be proud of yourself, but have integrity and want someone to be proud of you. Be a part of the community, part of your world.
Bobbing, 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 bobbing along. Bobbing, bobbing along, bobbing along.